This is the Ryan Morik Show.
Hello, fans of all ages. This is indeed the Ryan Morik podcast. Thank you all for tuning into the 6th episode. Since my last podcast, a lot of stuff has gone on with Ray Rice, Adrian Peterson. There's a lot of drama in the NFL, but first, we're going to start off with the New York Football Giants, who picked up their first win yesterday against the Houston Texans. And they looked, besides that ugly first quarter, they looked pretty good. It looked like that West Coast offense worked. It worked very well last night. Eli threw 2 touchdowns. He didn't throw an interception yesterday for the first time in 8 games. He completed 75% of his passes, went 21 for 28 for 234 yards, had a rating of 123.2, which is amazing. And even Rashad Jennings, he went off yesterday. He had 176 rushing yards on 34 attempts. That's 5 yards to carry. And a touchdown. So if you have him for fantasy, good pickup. He's on pace right now for a 1,500-yard season. So keep that in mind. And the big surprise for me with this Giants team is the whole offseason, everyone was saying their 2 biggest questions are their offensive line and their tight end. Larry Donnell has been one of their assets to this team. He has a touchdown. He's averaging 10 yards a catch. He has 180 yards. The only person in front of him in receiving yards is Victor Cruz. And part of that has to do with his 60-plus yard catch yesterday. I'm hoping that this is the start of them finally getting used to this offense, because those first 2 games was atrocious. And on top of that, the game against Arizona, Victor Cruz dropped some passes. Ruben Randall dropped some passes. Who knows? Ted Ginn probably does not run that back for a touchdown if those balls are caught. And that's a whole new ball game. Because what was the score of that game? 25-14. One of them was a punt return off of a drop pass. That's a whole new ball game. So the Giants should not be too disappointed with how they've been doing so far. Except that game for Detroit. That was pathetic. Blown coverage on Calvin Johnson, which you can't do. They tried to go one-on-one on him. It didn't work. Tough game. But yesterday was a bounce back. Big bounce back. And they have a big game on Thursday at Washington. Their upcoming schedule: Thursday at Washington, Sunday home versus Atlanta, at Philly, at Dallas. So 3 of the next 4 games are on the road against their division rivals. And their only home game is against Atlanta, they've impressed me. They have one of the best offenses I've seen all year. They're Matt Ryan's first in passing yards this year with 333. Rushing yards, they're 16th with 120, which is not bad. Their defense is a little iffy. They let up a lot of passing yards. They're 25th overall. So if these guys can catch some balls against Atlanta, the Giants can have a good day that game. And Washington, how have they been? They're doing pretty well offensively. They're ranked 3rd and 9th in passing yards and rushing yards, and their defense has been pretty good. So their 1-2 record, they're not playing like a 1-2 team. That game against Philly came down to the wire. And Houston's a pretty good football team. Washington has a pretty tough schedule too. After the Giants, it's a Monday night against Seattle, and then they play a 4:25 game at Arizona. That's going to be dangerous. After that, though, it's pretty smooth sailing. They have Tennessee, they have Dallas, they have Minnesota. So that can go either way. And then Philly, they've been incredible. They've been incredible. 3-0. Their defense is not very good, though. They have let up 280 passing yards a game. They're second overall in passing yards on offense, though, which is not bad. What's dangerous, though, is LaShawn McCoy. He's not having that great of a year so far. Darren Sproles has really carried that team in the running game. Jeremy Macklin's doing very well. And their schedule, it's tough also. They play San Fran this week. Then they're against St. Louis. That's probably a win. And then the Giants, and then the Cardinals, and then the Texans, and then Carolina, and then the Packers. They have a stretch of 5 games that are going to be very tough. On the road against 2 great defenses, home against Carolina. Green Bay is one of the toughest stadiums to play in, if not the toughest. I've been there. It's cold. The fans are loud. They love their team. Good luck against the Packers. And Dallas, well, they've won their last 2 in a row, both against not too great of teams, Tennessee and St. Louis. But their defense is surprisingly not too awful. And on top of that, DeMarco Murray has been filthy. He's averaging over 100 yards a game. He has 385 yards through 3 games and 3 touchdowns. He's an animal. That guy's a beast. So right now, the NFC East standings are Philly at 3-0, Dallas at 2-1, and the Giants and Skins at the bottom, 1-2. And barring a tie, one of them is going to drop into 4th. As always, this division is going to come down to the wire. Before the season started, my prediction was Giants winning the division. And then after the first 2 games, I would have been shocked if the Giants would have matched their record from last year, which was 7-9. But after yesterday, they gave me a little bit of hope. Not going to lie. They looked good. Eli played great. And that's the thing with Eli. Eli's going to have either really good games or really bad games. That's just how he is. He's completed 65% of his passes so far. Their goal is 70. If they're off by 5%, and 65% is a great season. He's thrown 5 touchdowns in 3 games, 675 yards in 3 games. There are some signs of life. The Giants do have a tough schedule, though. They got to play the Colts. They got to play Seattle. They got to play San Fran. And then after that, they got Dallas, Jacksonville, Tennessee, and Washington and St. Louis. And their last game is against Philly. So it's really, really difficult. And then they have that one stretch of games where they should win at least 3 of them. At least. So as a Giant fan, my optimism is growing. I'm not saying they're a Super Bowl bound team yet, but I think they're heading in the right direction. I think the offense worked very well yesterday. And if they keep feeding Rashad Jennings and if he keeps bowsing over these defenses, they're going to have a good season. But the Giants are not the Kings of New York right now. The New York Jets look good. They were up 21-3 against Green Bay at one point last week. They blew it, which was pathetic. That one timeout screwed them over. And they had an ugly win against Oakland, but they bounced back pretty nicely against Green Bay. And that wasn't a game that they were supposed to win. And the Jets are ranked first in rushing yards. Chris Ivory has been an animal. And Chris Johnson, he's been all right. He could be doing better. But right now, Chris Ivory's carrying that team very well. And this game against Chicago tonight, that's going to prove a lot. They have to contain Matt Forte. They have to. The Jets have one of the best defenses in the league. Top 5, arguably. They're ranked first in opposing rushing yards with 52. 52 rushing yards. Granted, Eddie Lacy has not been playing well so far. In Oakland, McFadden and Jones-Drew, they're not like they were 5 years ago. But even their passing yards, they've only let up 220 on average. That's 11th in the league. So this game against Chicago is going to prove a lot. If they can stop Marshall and Jeffrey, then you win the game. Geno has to keep playing well. He's been doing decently. And then you got to rely on Chris Ivory and Chris Johnson. You got to have those two backs keep playing well. That's a win for the Jets if they can do that tonight. And the good thing about the Jets is that they're getting the NFC North out of the way quickly. They got Green Bay last week, Chicago tonight, Detroit next week. And Detroit's a home game also. That can be good because you get the hard division out of the way, but that could be bad because you don't want to start off on a bad note because you're expected to lose against Green Bay. Chicago can go either way, and Detroit can definitely go either way. And then after Detroit, you have at San Diego versus Denver, at New England versus Buffalo, at Kansas City, who's been tough, Pittsburgh, who played very well last night against Carolina. That surprised me a lot. But that big stretch of games, San Diego, Denver, New England, that's going to be tough. If they want to make the playoffs, they have to win at least one of those games, and they have to pray for 2 or 3. But after that stretch, Buffalo, Miami, Minnesota in late November, early December, and they end the year against New England, Miami. I think that this game tonight will make or break their season. I think this game is going to show who they really are. You got a Monday night against the Chicago Bears, who have a great offense. You're home. The crowd's going to be going nuts. This game is going to prove a lot, whether they win or lose. This game is going to determine their entire season, I think. I think any Jet fan should be confident in this team and in this game tonight, especially after that game against Green Bay. Even though they blew it, and that was very upsetting, they ran up 21-3. They tied it up and then got called back because of a stupid timeout. They still played pretty well. I got scared for them when they squeaked by Oakland. That was pretty ugly. But I thought Geno played pretty well in that game, and I thought the Jets played decently against Green Bay. And I think this game against the Bears is going to prove a lot. Now, it stinks to talk about this, but it's got to be talked about. Everything going on in the NFL with Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for this society. I'm going to start off with Ray Rice. We've seen the videos. We've made the arguments. Goodell has made the suspensions. And before you get the wrong idea, I want everyone to know I do not condone domestic violence. I do not condone violence at all, unless if you're playing football, which is the ironic part about this. Ray Rice should not have been suspended 2 games, but I think it's more unfair that he got suspended indefinitely after the second video was released. In the court of law, you can't be punished twice for the same crime, and that's exactly what happened to Ray Rice. I thought that was bogus. What did you expect happened in the elevator? Ray Rice admitted to punching her in the face. So why was the video so shocking? Roger Goodell basically admitted to CBS that he needed to see the video. He said, no, we didn't have to see the video, but what we saw in the video was clear, and that's why we suspended him indefinitely. So you did need to see the video, right? How pathetic is that? What does domestic violence look like to you? Obviously, he knocked her out cold. We all knew that. I thought what the Ravens did was the right thing to do. I think that it hits players harder when their own franchise suspends them and punishes them. I feel like when it's by the NFL, it doesn't hit them too hard. I remember I was listening to Herm Edwards on Sports Center, and he said that the NFL didn't do anything about one of his guys getting in trouble, but he went up to him and said, "You're my best player, but we can't have that kind of guy on our team." And I forgot who it was, but he suspended him for 3 games. And I feel if I were a professional athlete, that would hurt me a lot, getting punished by my own team. I think the Ravens did it because they had to, because they looked at the video and then they said, wow, like, we really screwed up. But I also thought it was, as much as I did like it, it was so hypocritical. John Harbaugh, shortly after the first video came out, said that the punishment was fair, 2 games. And now he's doing what Goodell did. He's punishing him for the same crime twice. Now, obviously, I don't condone what Ray Rice did. Guys like that should not be in the National Football League. But you can't do that. You can't suspend a guy twice for the same crime. What justice is that? We're not going to bring back Casey Anthony and say, "Oh, we've screwed up, you're guilty." We're not going to bring back OJ from 1994 and say, "You're already in jail, so we'll just give you an extra punishment anyway." You can't suspend the same guy. You can't punish a person twice for the same crime. I don't care what it is. I don't care how badly you screwed up. You can't do it twice. Honestly, that video was the best thing to happen to Roger Goodell. That video saved him. Or did it? Because now people are saying that he saw it shortly after it happened. So I don't know what I believe. I don't think that he saw it. I think someone was just trying to make a story. Because it didn't go out it would have leaked. The video would have leaked. Because it happened, February, right? We didn't see the video of Ray Rice punching her until, 2 weeks ago? It would have leaked by now. If someone sent it to the NFL in April, someone would have hacked in and got it. So with my logic, with my opinions, I think that video was the best thing to happen to Goodell. Because he realized he screwed up, and then that's when he said, okay, let me take back what I did and do this. It is stupid, but I think that's his justice, I guess. And the one thing that is worse than hitting a woman is hitting your child. Now, I can understand a spank, but this was not a spank. His kids got cut up badly. It's not like the wooden spoon came out and it was just, "Papa, okay, that's your punishment." This was harsh. This was brutal. And I don't think he's going to play in the NFL this season. I'll be shocked if he plays next season, to be honest with you. Whether he's charged with whether he's found guilty or not, I don't think he's going to play next season either. Honestly, Adrian Peterson's entire career and legacy might have just been tarnished. And as a fantasy owner of Adrian Peterson, I'm not happy. But that's what happens. You can't... what's wrong with these athletes? Don't you realize that kids look up to you and that you just have one job? You have one job that people would kill for. You are a household name making millions of dollars to run around with a ball in your hands. There are guys overseas who are fighting for jobs back home. The ones serving our country. And you're the one that gets to put on pads, run around, and make millions of dollars. And you screw it all up by beating your child. I'm sorry, the way you were raised is no excuse. I get that people were abused in their childhood, and it makes it hard because you live in Texas. You're a football player. It's religion down there. But you got to know the limit. To take a stick and whip them in the butt and allegedly the scrotum. I mean, come on. There's no room for that. There's no room for that. Now, I'm only 19 years old. I don't have kids. And when I do have kids, I honestly, I don't know what I'm going to do when it comes to a small spank. I would like to say no, but I know people who need it because people believe it's acceptable, and I've thought about it. Now, I've never laid my hands on a kid as for I don't know how long. When I was 12, I probably fought around with my little sister, but I grew up because I'm smart. I wouldn't do that. You can't be so overpowering to someone like that. And the fact that he beat him so hard, that makes it so much worse. People were saying that he was grabbing his kids with all the strength that he had in his hands. And people have said that the strongest handshake that they have ever had came from Adrian Peterson. So imagine, and handshakes are not meant to be used for all of your might in your hands. Think of a firm handshake and think of that times 50. That's what Adrian Peterson did to his kids, allegedly. An 11-year-old and a 4-year-old. I like what the Vikings did. It's Adrian Peterson. This guy almost broke Eric Dickerson's rushing yard. He was short rushing yard record. He was short by 8 yards. He's one of the best running backs of my generation. Now, the Vikings were not making the playoffs whether Adrian Peterson was playing or not. Honestly, the difference between Adrian Peterson playing and not playing is 3-13 and 5-11, 6-10, probably. But this is still, whether your team is bad or not, that's your franchise. That's the head of the pack. And they got rid of him. They cut him off. That's what I like. If the NFL did that, I would be like, okay, the NFL, not surprising, they should have suspended him. You don't see teams suspend players that often anymore. I feel like I see it in college too much because they don't want to get in trouble by the NCAA. These teams need to be hard on their players. They can't expect them to get a paycheck, run out on the field, go back home, and then just keep doing that over. They have to expect them to be a real person off the football field. Just because you're a celebrity does not mean anything you do is a free ride. You don't get any free passes in my book. Sorry. Other people maybe, but you don't get a free ride in my book. I just hope that one day athletes realize that they are people first, athletes second. Family comes first, not the ball that you carry 100 yards a game for. They need to realize that there are things a little more important than playing a game. And I hope one day we see that. Because in the NFL is cracking down. They're throwing flags all over the place. Colin Kaepernick got a flag for inappropriate language, which is pathetic. But the NFL is, whether you like it or not, it's trying to become a safer league. But the problem is it's becoming a safer league on the field only and not off the field. Speaking of people off the field, tonight starts Derek Jeter's final home series against the Baltimore Orioles. 4 games left at Yankee Stadium, and the Yankees are probably not making the postseason, so this is it. I'm not going to go off about Derek Jeter. I want to talk about their season. This season hurts so much more than last year. And here's why. Coming into this season in December, January, when they signed Ellsbury, McCann, Tanaka, and Beltran, I got that feeling like I did back in 2009 when they got CC, AJ, and Teixeira. I had that feeling that the Yankees are going to win the World Series this year. And then you think about Derek Jeter retiring, and you're like, okay, his career's a script. So obviously they're going to win the World Series this year. No one expected Beltran and McCann to hit 240. No one expected Derek Jeter to hit 250 and go on an 0 for 28 slump in August and September. No one expected Jacoby Ellsbury to hover around 270 and hit 285 a couple times. No one expected Mark Teixeira to bat 220. No one expected 80% of the pitching staff to go down, but that's not why the Yankees were awful this year. I shouldn't say awful. I should say mediocre. They're awful for the Yankees, but they still weren't too bad of a team. But you can't win games with your 3-4 hitters batting 240. You can't win games. You can't make the postseason if you let up more runs than you score. Where are they? Minus 31. Boston has minus 96. Chicago White Sox 88. The Twins 73. Houston and Texas 84 and 136. The fact that the Yankees were above 500 this year with that run differential is insane. The Yankees still actually have a 0.1% chance of making the postseason. So there you go. You have hope, and good luck. But just like last year, they celebrate an icon, one of the most influential players ever. And you can't get this guy to the postseason? What do you expect? I know no one expected this offense to be so brutal. And I think starting Tanaka yesterday was a terrible idea. They are not making the postseason. They're not going to make it. Why are you risking further injury? He looked great. Don't get me wrong. But he's bound for Tommy John surgery. He's bound. I don't know when they should do it. I don't know if they're going to do it. But I think it's going to happen one day. And I think that this rehab process, they say it worked, and he was thrown today, and they said his arm felt good. But I did not like the idea at all. I was not a fan of it. They got the win, but I think it was way too early. I don't think this was the right time. I think they should have waited it out because he's their future. And if this hitting continues next season, which I don't think it will, I think McCann has gotten used to playing in New York. I think he's going to have a much better year next year. I don't think Ellsbury's going to hit 270. I think Brett Garner's maturing as a ball player. Beltran is not going to have another 240 season. I have some high hopes for next year, and who knows, if they get Lester or Scherzer or even Tulowitzki, I'm going to have a lot of fun watching the Yankees next year. And the one guy I cannot wait to get back onto that field is Alex Rodriguez. You can love him, you can hate him. I hate him. But when I go to games in 2015, I'm going to be standing up for him. I'm going to be cheering for him. Why? Because he's on the team. He's going to try to win baseball games. I don't care how poorly you do. If you're on the Yankees, I'm going to cheer for you. That's it. If you're helping this team win, you get my applause. I gave him a standing ovation last year when he came back into the stadium shortly after his suspension got announced. I gave him an applause. I hate him, but I'm not saying forgive, but you gotta forget about what happened. You need to realize that this is your team. What are you gonna do if A-Rod hits a walk-off home run in the World Series next year to clinch their 28th title? You're gonna boo him? Absolutely not. There's no way. You're gonna be ecstatic. If A-Rod produces, you're really gonna be upset? No way. And on top of that, he's going to draw a lot of people into those seats. Maybe not in April, May, because it's going to be cold. But after that, people are going to fill up those seats, and they're going to want to watch Alex Rodriguez play baseball. But with that being said, let's hope A-Rod has a good year too. Let's hope he's a 280, 290 guy. He probably won't be. Maybe 260, 270. And I know that's what every Yankee fan is praying for, which is ridiculous. Why would you want a guy to do badly for your team? That's ridiculous. But I think this entire season needs to just throw it out the window. Except this homestand with Jeter, because that's going to be fun. The people in these last couple games have been ecstatic. In his last at-bats in all the games, every fan is on their seats. And I cannot wait to be at that last game. I'm going on Thursday. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to be crying my eyes out. It's going to be really bittersweet, but it's going to be fun. And I can't wait. But other than this homestand, you got to take this season, throw it out the window. And hope that the rotation stays like this. Hope Betances goes off again. Robertson, great job this year filling in for the best closer of all time. Awesome job. That's tough shoes to fill. And he was a strikeout machine, he and Betances. But the offense has got to do something. All right, that about does it for the 6th episode of the podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. Quick update, my first play-by-play gig is next Tuesday for Ramapo Women's Volleyball. My radio show with the station should be coming up next month. I will keep you guys posted on that. I'm very excited to get everything started. Remember, it's not goodbye. And see you later. Take care, everybody.